Well, of course, looking ahead to the Wednesday of the Cheltenham Festival, we're going to have a plethora of Grade 1s which really set the pulse racing. We'll kick off with the Ballymore Novices Hurdle, the opening race on your cards. Clearly a lot of unknowns still here in this assignment, isn't there? With your two market leaders, or three market leaders in theory, Sir Gerhard, Dice at Dynamo and Constitution Hill. There's a fair chance maybe one and a max could actually line up in this assignment. So it's a bit of a head scratcher for punters. We'll come to you first, Stephen, on this one. I mean, how do you kind of play this race? Is this one you're going to wait to late doors, or do you take a punt on something now at a bigger price with the view that you could see the market falling apart?
Yeah, there could be very few of those are going to run, aren't they? I'd be amazed if two of them did. I thought Ginto has long looked the part for this race, to be honest. Again, a tough improver. A point winner, a bumper winner, 3 from 3 over hurdles. Really impressive from the front in a Grade 1 at Naas last time. Revels in soft ground, still improving. I thought was rock solid around about 5-1, and I think definitely going to run, Ed. Is that the case? It's not going to go. It was the Albert Bartlett was talked about, wasn't it? And they've got the other one in that Hollow Games. They're closely matched, those two. But I did think Ginto is the one to side with at the moment. Again, it's a difficult race to pin your colours firmly to the mast until you can see how many runners and what's going to run where.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of muddied waters here. Vincent, yourself, as ever, Irish are a pretty formidable challenge in here. Is there a standout performer in your eyes?
No, I think this is going to end up being wide open, is the bottom line, because I don't think Ginto runs here. We'll wait and see. I'd always thought he'd go for the 3. The one thing that Gordon Elliott says about Ginto all the time is a dour stare, stays all day, can't get far enough, all that sort of stuff, chaser in the making, all that type of phrases. So why go 2 mile 5 when you can go 3 miles later in the week would be my interpretation of it. The other ones, I think they'll all go for the Supreme, Constitution Hill, John Bond, and Sir Gerhard. If Sir Gerhard does turn up here, I think he's a lay. That's my own personal opinion, because I think he'd be a short price in this. If he turns up here, and I'm not sure, he's so free running and he's always right on the bridle. You just feel, is he going to run out of puff coming up the hill? I think he probably will over this sort of trip. So for me, maybe the De Bromhead horse, Journey With Me, has done nothing wrong. It was a real good performance at Christmas in Leopardstown. He beat 2 decent horses that day. I'd be expecting him at the sort of prices, but we wait and see what the final runners are, because obviously a huge amount of them here at the head of the betting won't run.
I was going to say, Journey With Me, of course, has the option of the Albert Bartlett as well, like many horses engaged in this contest are. Manila Kakuna, Danny, horse you've got a good rapport with and you're enjoying riding this year. Is he a horse you think will be likely to come here, or do you think the 3 mile option for the Albert Bartlett is probably his more likely target?
I thought after riding him in Leopardstown the last day that with his slick jumping, he'd have no issue dropping back in trip. He made the running that day in Leopardstown over 2.6, but 2.5 around Cheltenham would be no issue to him. But I think what Willie was saying in his interviews after the race were that he wouldn't see a reason to come back and trip with him, and that he was thinking towards the Albert Bartlett. All that could change between now and then. I think this race is laid open for Sir Gerhard to run in, and I think if he turns up, he'll win. I'll take on Vincent here and nail my colours to the mast with Sir Gerhard. Going a stride slower, Paul Townend will find a perfect slot, switch him off, he'll jump, and his class will kick in. I think he'd be in a different league to these and should take all the beating. I'd be imagining he would turn up in this race.
Obviously, I feel like I'm flying a solo flag here. But we've got a Challow Hurdle winner in Stage Star. I think it's been a little bit forgotten. He's done absolutely nothing wrong. Walking on Air, if he did line up, I think is the absolute joker in the pack. I mean, it's not ideal going in to a race at the Cheltenham Festival, the back of 1 win over hurdles, but he absolutely won doing handstands at Newbury. It sounds like he's going to this. Nico de Boinville will be on board. Obviously, Nicky Henderson with 70 Cheltenham Festival winners on his CV, probably knows what he's doing more than me. Anyway, so yeah, I think this is, as I think we all agree, this is wide open. This could be anything at the moment. Right, moving on to second race on the card, the Brown Advisory Novices Chase. I mean, what a contest we've possibly got in store here. Again, as is the kind of mantra with a few of these assignments at the moment. We're not entirely sure who is going to be lining up, but we'd have a very good idea that Brave Man's Game is definitely going to this. Will he, won't he, with Galloping de Champs, I suppose, is the big question we hear from Danny in a moment. Bob Ollinger sounds like it's going to head to the Turners over the 2.5. La Hoy Signor, connections have confirmed that Scottish Raider will line up in this. Long Press 11-2 is also more likely to run in the Turners. And then you're in double figure prices. The rest of the field, Danny Galloping de Champs. I mean, we saw what he did in the Martin Pipe conditional jockeys hurdle last season. He's gone over fences, and wow. I mean, now and again, you get a horse come along when he goes over obstacle, really makes you sit up and take note. And it's been spine tingling what he's managed to produce so far.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable. But the only thing is, he hasn't been truly tested yet. I think Willie has said at his open day that he was leaning towards running him in the 2.5 mile novice chase, the Turners they call it this year, is it? Yep. So it probably leaves the door open here for Brave Man's Game. I'm a big fan of Brave Man's Game as well. You know, he's been class in what he's achieved so far this season. He doesn't seem to put a foot wrong. You know, even at Kempton, down to the last, Harry Cobden asked him for a big one. He just said no, in, pop, and went away like a true handicapper. You know, I think he's a very good horse. He was behind Bob Ollinger last year in the Ballymore, and were Bob Ollinger to take him on here, I think Brave Man's Game with his jumping could turn it around. Of the others, I think Capodanno is still fairly interesting. I would have loved to see him get a lot further in Leopardstown. You know, the way he improved from Naas to Punchestown was fantastic. He was only 4.5, 4.75 lengths behind Bob Ollinger in Punchestown, and that's a fairly strong bit of form. Bar any of the horses, you know, that have been behind Galloping de Champs, I think that's one of the best bits of form coming out of Ireland, and that could give Brave Man's Game something to think about here. Nichol's horses were, you know, reported not to be not running well. His strike rate was bad through the winter. Brave Man's Game kept winning and kept getting the job done. So to think that Brave Man's Game could improve with the whole team from Ditchet, he might be untouchable. But if you're looking for one to take him on, I think Capodanno is the one for me.
Yeah, fascinating each way play there, around 8-1 for Danny Mullins. I mean, I gave Galloping de Champs the big build-up, Stephen, in terms of his jumping. Jumping is the name of the game, and I mean, Brave Man's Game has been absolutely electric. I mean, I don't think I'll get carried away in saying that. Is it in the back of your mind? He's been doing it on flat tracks, Newbury's, Kemptons, etc. Over hurdles last year at the Cheltenham Festival was slammed and fairly put in his place. But do you take that kind of with a pinch of salt that he is now a bigger, stronger, more imposing type, and you just think, look, he's a better chaser and he's the one to beat?
Absolutely. I mean, he won at Newton Abbot in October. I've never seen anything like it. I know that Newton Abbot and people turn their noses up at it. He gained about a length at every fence. He just winged it his way around, a complete natural first look, and he's not really done anything to change that impression since. The only thing I'll say is he's probably quite closely matched with Ahoy Senor. Ahoy Senor has run twice right-handed. He was beaten when he unseated at Carlisle, and he never really went a yard at Kempton. He made a series of niggly mistakes, and Brave Man's Game was always running over him. Ahoy Senor's since gone to Wetherby and jumped superbly left-handed from the front in a weak race. I don't think there's that much between them, and both of them would be fine on soft ground. It's just what Ireland sends over there. It's always at the back of your mind when you're talking about these English horses, and we've done it earlier with Edward Stone and Third Time Lucky. They've been beating each other in small fields, and you just sense the form in Ireland is a lot more competitive and a lot stronger. So I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't much between Brave Man's Game and Ahoy Senor, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the Irish runners, whatever turns out to be a lot stronger than both of them.
Vincent, we see from that graphic there, you're keen on the chances of Brave Man's Game. I mean, we're going back to Galloping de Champs, because I say that was breathtaking, wasn't it? That chase debut. Danny does make a good point that he hasn't really been put under pressure or anything asked of him yet. I mean, do you see him going the 3 mile route, or do you think they will perhaps look at the stiff 2.5 or the new course for Galloping?
Yeah, well, Willie was fairly adamant the other day when there was a press open morning that he was going for the other race, going to take on Bob Ollinger in the Turners. And okay, we know Willie changes his mind a lot of times between now and the festival. God knows what will happen between some of his runners. But at the same time, if that's his opinion now, maybe he sticks with it. And if that's the case, Braidman's Game is going to be very hard to beat. Braidman's Game admittedly wasn't any match for Bob Ollinger this time last year over hurdles at the festival, and came into it a fancied runner, same as he does this time, but didn't live up to the mark on the day. Having said that, he looks a very, very good chaser. And everything coming out of Paul Nicholls' mouth about him, comparing him to Denman and everything else, it makes you think, look, they seem to have the real deal now. They found the key to him. Everything works well when you throw him over fences. He's a beautiful jumper. He's going to be very hard to beat in this, particularly with the fact that maybe our 2-star performers aren't going to be here. They're going to be in the other race. Having said that, as Danny mentioned, that Capodanno's not a bad horse. It gave Bob Ollinger a run for his money in Punchestown. Admittedly, there were a few fences omitted that day due to low sun, which isn't ideal at this time of year for these novices. You want to see them jump as many as they can. So Capodanno, maybe with a clear round of jumping, everything going well, he'd be a contender, certainly at an each way price. But the way it's shaping up with where the best of the Irish are going to run in the other race, I'd be thinking Braidman's Game could be one for the English here.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of races which are shaping up nicely, the Champion Chase, of course, arguably could be the race of the entire Cheltenham Festival, with Shishkin and Energumene looking to have another rematch from the absolute ding-dong battle at Ascot back in January. A lot of rumours in the build-up to this, weren't there? Energumene, a few alarm bells going out. I believe Willie Mullins has come out today and say, yeah, the horse, Energumene, had a stone bruise 5 or 6 days ago. Since then, Ruby Walsh has sat on him, ridden him out, and he seems absolutely fine. Danny, we come to you on this one. As I mentioned, it was an absolute a belter, wasn't it? Shishkin versus Energumene at Ascot. I mean, do you see it kind of going to script again this time round, or what's your view on Energumene? Do you think he's got more to offer? Could he pull a bit of a rabbit out of a hat here?
I think the race in Ascot was fantastic between the two, Shishkin and Energumene. Energumene jumped, travelled, stopped the race at the last that day, and you'd have a fair job convincing anybody that Shishkin was going to win, but he still managed to get the job done. I don't see a reason at the moment as to how Energumene can turn that around. I'm sure Willie will have a chat, and a new plan will be made and they'll attack again. I think it's possibly, that form will hold up, but to me, the older horse, Chacun Pour Soi, I think he can get his chance at winning a Champion Chase. The first year he went over, he had a stone bruise, he missed the race, he was fine 24 hours later. Then the next year, Politolog was a late non-runner. The pace in the race completely collapsed. They went steady. It was a bunch finish. He led over the last and just got ran out of it. I think this is going to be a very truly run Champion Chase. And I think Chacun Pour Soi is going to get his chance to put his name on the trophy.
That's fascinating insight. I mean, I suppose he's got the kind of age bias against him, and also the someone coined it the beef or salmon bias against him, and the fact that whenever he's got on the ferry and come over here, things haven't come right. I mean, Danny, do you think there's too much being made of that, or do you think there is slightly in the back of your mind that at Sandown he ran possibly the worst races of his career? At Cheltenham, it looked for 90% of the races if he was going to win half the track, but it didn't. I mean, do you think there's too much being made of it, or do you think there possibly is something not all horses take to travelling?
I think there's too much to be made of it. It ran too bad to be true in the Tingle Creek. Willie's horses hadn't been on fire mid-November, early December. We just hadn't had any rain in Ireland. The gallop wasn't really soft enough to have them at peak performance. Last year, they went far too slow in the Champion Chase, and Nube Negra, was he in front of him or a length behind him? He was very close to him. Yeah. Then you look at him in Punchestown, where Chacun and Allaho went a proper gallop, and Nube Negra was left 25 lengths behind that day. I think with a truly run race, you'll really get a chance to see the real Chacun this year, and he's the one I think can win the race.
Tactically with Chacun Pour Soi, would you want to play him really late, or would you want to try draw the sting out of Shishkin? What would you be doing?
I'd imagine, he'll bounce out good and handy. If there's no strong pace on, there's every chance he could make his own run and make it quite a strong gallop. But if somebody else jumps out to go a mad gallop, he'll be able to sit in, travel behind him, move into the race down the hill, and keep pouring it on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Stephen, speaking of mad gallop, I mean, I think this race will be running at a proper pace, won't it? If you've got the old boy Politolog in there, it sounds like Put the Kettle On's going to run. I think Gary Moore's absolute tear away. Lovely horse, Editor de Guit's going to line up as well. So this is going to be like a 6 furlong sprint from the get-go here. I mean, how do you see this race unfolding?
I think it's made for Shishkin. I mean, he did absolutely everything wrong at Ascot. As usual, de Boinville secured the car park route 6 wide. He made a bad blunder at the wrong time, stumbled. He picked up for pressure. Cheltenham's his track. It's left-handed, steep uphill finish. It'll bring him into it. If they go a fast pace, I think he'll win. I think he went out to odds against earlier in the week. Obviously, Enugamin's had a bit of a wobble on the exchanges, perhaps, but that was a very big price. I think he's going to be the whole public's nap. From a fascinating betting point of view, Tony Bloom owns Enugamin. I think they were absolutely mortified he got beaten at Ascot. He had the complete run of the race, which he definitely won't get at Cheltenham. I'd be very surprised if that form wasn't upheld. I think Shishkin will beat Enugamin by a lot further. I think it's a good thing. It's just Nico is rather making me shake a bit of the prospect at a short price. I think Danny's been very charitable about Chacun Pour Soi. I mean, I didn't think they went particularly... I mean, they didn't go mad gallop last year. It was a very poor renewal. Chacun was in the absolute box seat throughout up the inside, cruised round, 13.08 on, got to the hill and stopped. And I thought at Sandown, he went like a horse with something wrong with him. I mean, he stopped. He's absolutely legless at Sandown. Now, the horses might not have been right. I don't know. Maybe he went amiss. And also, he bounced back to form in Ireland last time. Well, he raced wide and the ground was 300 yards better wide. But nobody had told Bryony Frost that day. Greener Tin was parked up the inside in the super glue. And basically, Chacun had a solo trial. So I wouldn't say that represented a bounce back to form for Chacun. I will be absolutely stunned if they both get round and Shishkin doesn't beat Chacun Pour Soi by a very long way, personally. But we'll play this back and Danny can come on and give me a rub down when the form gets completely reversed.
I'm enjoying this difference of opinion here. Vincent, how do you sit with this one? Do you see any weaknesses? I mean, look, 4 to 6, so 8 to 11 there or thereabouts. Shishkin, do you think that's the right price for him?
But at the moment, it probably is with the doubt about Energamy. Just stone bruise, okay, it's only a stone bruise, but you just don't like anything like this in the run-up to it. We're only 11 days away from the start of Cheltenham. You don't want to hear these things about your horses having problems. That's a worry for me because I thought Energamy had a chance of reversing here. The main reason I was putting it down to was this race is almost a furlong shorter than the Tingle Creek. So that alone has to be a help. As Danny says, if you'd have stopped that last race with the two of them at the last fence, there's only one winner. There's absolutely only one winner. Even halfway up the run-in, you would think Energamy was going to beat Shishkin. Shishkin out-battled him in the end, got there and won, but over almost a furlong shorter, not quite sure he's going to get there, depending on how the race is run and everything else. One thing I'd like to hear from Danny is, what does he think Paul will ride in this?
I'm not sure. What Willie had said was he thought Chacun was his number one horse in the race, and Paul's ridden them all. I'm sure he's waiting to see late on. If I were Paul, I'd ride Chacun Pour Soi, but he'll make that decision late on.
Fair enough.
A lot of confidence here behind Chacun Pour Soi. It's interesting. Look at this. I think Nube Negra can pick up the pieces and run into a place at a price because, as we said, I think there'll be a mad old tear up in the head of affairs. What I find quite funny here, though, is got 4 different selections on the champion chase. I thought this was a 2-minute job with 4 of us on Shishkin, or at least 3 of us on Shishkin. But anyway, yeah, really, really fascinating count to this. Should hopefully they all get there because it really will be one of the races of the Cheltenham Festival, if not the one race. If you're just going to watch one race, someone who's never seen horse racing before and wants to watch one race at the Cheltenham Festival, I think this is pretty much it. Top class 2-mile chasers going hammer and tongs. We'll move on to the concluding race on the Wednesday, which of course is the champion bumper. Facile Vega is your market leader, 11 to 10. American Mike done very little wrong, 11 to 4. Redemption Day was impressive over the Christmas period, 6 to 1. Mercury 12s, James's Gate 12s, and then you're into the bigger prices. Danny, I mean, you've probably got a better insight than all of us here. In fact, you will have a better insight than all of us here. Regards to Facile Vega, obviously Q Vega is a horse She has her own tapas bar, doesn't she, at Cheltenham Racecourse now? An absolute a Cheltenham legend. And I mean, Facile Vega, it's very early days, but on what we've seen so far, you've got to be getting really excited.
Yeah, he looked awesome winning at Leopardstown the last. He's won twice in Leopardstown, but that win at the Dublin Festival where he just seemed to ease away. You know, the second horse has since got beaten, so maybe that form is slightly questioned, but the manner in which he done it, you can't but be taken by that. But the only thing about the bumper is so many of these young horses are developing at different speeds to others. There's always a chance of one popping up here. Facile Vega, he works very well at home. He looks in great shape. Dave Porter rides him all the time, and he couldn't be happier with him. But just at the price, I think you have to look elsewhere. American Mike, he's one Gordon Elliott has been talking up all the time. He worked behind Florin Porter in Fairy House a couple of weeks ago, and Jamie Codd was quite impressed with him that day. I thought it was a decent schooling race. So, you know, the fact that he hasn't been seen since late December, I think it was Navan he ran in. He looks in great shape from that bit of work in Fairy House. And Redemption Day, I wouldn't rule him out either. I think it's possibly the one that Paul Townend is going to side with here. He was very impressive winning in Leopardstown, beat another one of Gordon's and Henry's that day, but moved clear very easily that day. And had he run in the bumper where Facile Vega ran at the Dublin Festival, I think there's a good chance he could have won in the same manner, and you'd have the prices flipped around for both of those horses. So to me, of the short ones, I think a lot of the value is in Redemption Day.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, bolted up the last one.
He bolted up, and you know, Mercury is also another one for Willie. Won 4-year-old bumper in Goran, but 4-year-olds have a very weak record in the bumper. Was Q Card possibly the last one to win it, I think? So that's a big negative towards him. Mercury was very impressive that day in Goran. The second horse was well backed on the day as well and ran out quite an impressive winner. And you know, you're getting down to the next 10 of Willie's bumper horses that you could give a good shout out to, but you know, Madman's Game, possibly the least visually impressive that won on the track, but his work at home is very good. He could be, of the others, the one that represents a bit of value.
Do you have any idea if you'll be picking up a ride in this race, Danny?
Hopefully, if Willie runs between 5 and 10 of them, he might put me on one.
Yeah, but nothing cast in stone yet then from that comment.
No, Willie won't make any of those decisions till late on. We'll be over there, and he'll just pop us down a few horses.
Oh, brilliant. Great stuff. Vincent, I mean, is there a danger here with Facile Vega? We all have very short memories, it seems, sometimes. That Kilcrut looked absolutely invincible coming into last year's champion bumper. And, of course, there was a little bit of silence amongst the betting ring when he didn't get the job done. I mean, around even money, I mean, is it the type... In a bumper, what I'm trying to say to you is this the type of race you think that price is justified, or as Danny does make a very good point, so many unexposed types in here who can just suddenly come from out of the woodwork. Is it a race you'd probably want to just stay clear of from a betting perspective?
Well, the first thing is, of all the races, I know the Queen Mother Champion Chase looks like one of the races of the week, but so does this bumper, because we're seeing some exceptional looking talent coming through here. Facile Vega, admittedly, looks absolute top drawer, very hard to see the horse beat, but then you have Gordon Elliott and Jamie Cobb particularly so keen on American Mike, and what American Mike did that day in Navan was equally as impressive, visually anyway. And then you've got Redemption Day, you've got Mercury, and then the one I like is a horse called James's Gate. Now, bumpers are normally races in Ireland that punters love them, but so do bookmakers. They get some amount of favourites turned over in these races in Ireland. And this James's Gate ran in Punchestown. admittedly a while ago, but back from 11 to 8 into 2 to 5. That takes some money in the bumper to back one into that shorter price, 2 to 5 for a bumper, and it hacks up by 8 lengths. Could be anything if that turned up as well. But there are so many of them in here that could be anything, and that's the whole point, isn't it? We just don't know how good all of them are. And as Danny says, these horses are improving at different rates, and we haven't seen some of them for quite a few months. So you'd never know what the story is by the time they turn up. I certainly wouldn't be backing Facile Vega at anything near even money. I think that's a terrible price.
Of course, Stephen, a lot of these raw and exposed types have got to handle the preliminaries, which will be an absolute shock to a few of them. I think it's fair to say. You with or against the favourite here?
I'd be making a book here, Ed. I mean, these are brilliant races for bookmakers. It's round a dog track. There's trouble in running. There's going to be a big field. They've all got huge reputations. And 11 to 10 and 11 to 4 is 3 to 1 on coupled. Well, there's a lot of 3 to 1 on chances in life. If you want to bet 3 to 1 on the front two in a 20-runner Cheltenham bumper round that dog track, not for me. I'll have to put my bookmaker, fill the hod up, crack away, and pray you get a result. That being said, Ed, it's a brilliant race to watch. As you know, there'll be 10 winners come out of the race next time out over hurdles next season. It's a brilliant race. And this year, it looks better than ever. The front two have got massive, massive reputations, and there's a handful of other horses with similar reputations as well. But no, I'm going to be a bookmaker. 11 to 10, 11 to 4. It's 3 to 1 on coupled. You've got to fill the hod up, and I think a lot of bookmakers will be thinking the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for what it's worth, I got my Redemption Day. Of course, the form got a boost recently, didn't it, with Music Drive winning the other day. I think that's pretty strong form. And I was looking at Redemption Day's breeding from the very soft ground kind of orientated family. So if our reliable weather expert, Danny Mullins, is spot on with the deluge of rains we're going to get in the build-up, I think that will only enhance the credentials of that individual. Anything else on the cars that day, Danny, you think you might be riding, or anything we think we should be looking out for? Let's perhaps go a little bit under the radar.
I'm not sure where he runs. His state man. He's in the Coral Cup. His possibility of going for the Martin Pipe as well. Yeah. But wherever he turns up, he shows plenty at home. A mark of 141 looks okay for him. And I think, whatever handicap he goes into, state man would be one I'd like to keep on my side, possibly the Coral Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's quite interesting. Speaking to a few of my bookmaker friends, as soon as he was allotted 141 in the weights unveiling at Cheltenham earlier in the week, there was smoke billowing out of their machines. He was cut pretty much the favourite for every race he's entered in. I think he's got away with one there. Vincent, we come to you. Handicaps on the Wednesday. Anything else? We got the cross country, of course, Tiger Rolls final ever races. It's all going on the Wednesday, isn't it?
Well, one quick one for Danny around this is the Coral Cup. There's a horse that's entered in that and the Martin Pipe of Willie's called 5 O'Clock. That's a very interesting horse. Hasn't run since Cheltenham 2 years ago. Finished 7th in the Martin Pipe that day, back from 14s into 7 to 1. Got hampered and rider lost irons in that race. He's entered here. We haven't seen him in 2 years. And he's been very well treated by the handicapper. He's one of the few Irish horses that's actually been dropped 3 pounds by the English handicapper, which, if he's still alive, which I presume he is, though we haven't seen him for 2 years, the fact that he's got entries, he must be there somewhere. Have you seen him at all, Danny? How's he going?
Yeah, he seems to be tipping away well. I know he'd schooled a couple of times over fences. He possibly had an entry in a beginner's chase a couple of weeks back. Willie decided against that, possibly citing a go at a handicap like this. I won on him his penultimate start in Thurles. It was very impressive in the Michael Purcell novice hurdle that day, and I would have given him a big chance in the conditional race, the Martin Pipe, at Cheltenham 2 years ago. Just as you say, met the trouble in running, but ran off a mark of 145 that day. Hasn't been seen for 2 years, but dropped down to 141. Without running again. I think that the mark is right. If he turns up, he could be one at a bigger price, yeah.
Vincent, you were very polite, shirking that question off to Danny there. You're not going to get away with it. Come on, let's get you off the fence. The rest of the Wednesday, there must be something in here which you're really chomping at the bit to let us know about.
Yeah, in fairness, I don't really like the handicaps on Wednesday. Personally, I thought they're very hard, but that 5 o'clock definitely sticks out as something that could be hiding in amongst them. The other one then, I thought there was a mad one in the Grand Annual. A horse called Bundoran. Loves it here. He's an 11-year-old now, trained by Tom George. He was second in the race in 2019, third in 2020 in a poor champion chase, third of 5, admittedly. But he was rated 160 only a little over a year ago, and he's now rated 131. So it's sort of a horse at a huge price. Maybe he'd come up and show us something. The one bet I thought, the real bet of the day on this second day on the Wednesday, was the horse that Danny mentioned earlier, Shakin Poursois. You can get him at odds against without the 2 favourites, without Energamine and Shishkin on markets. On the Betfair exchange, he's as big as nearly 7-4. That seems a huge price. He started 8-13 to beat the very same horses. If you take out the top 2, he started 8-13 to beat those very same horses last year. Horses like Nupa Negra and Put the Kettle On. So 7-4 seems unbelievable on the exchange, him without the other 2.
Okay, a lot of confidence. This is the Shakin Poursois show, isn't it? Really, I was not expecting this. Well, Stephen, I know you'll be against that viewpoint, but on the rest of the card, anything else which you think we should be keeping an eye on? And what is your best bet on the Wednesday of the Cheltenham Festival?
The best bet was Shishkin, who I think has gone to a very fair price on the exchanges now, about 5-4 on, something like that. Bundoran, Vincent mentioned, well, he's got more seconds than Oliver Twist, doesn't he, on his card? And if Shakin Poursois gets up the hill on soft ground in a race that's 10 times better than last year's champion chase, age 10, I'll be absolutely stunned. So we've got a difference of opinion here, haven't we? I won't be coming on for a few weeks after Cheltenham at this rate. No, I thought the one that was interesting, we touched on already. Danny mentioned him for the Arkle on day 1, and that's Cur Sublime, who's in the Grand Annual around 10 or 12-1. Only had 3 runs over fences, jumped really well, routed the field at a time when Henry de Bromheads were completely dead a month or 2 ago. Been laid out for this race, I hope, and I think he's on a really attractive mark. The key with the Grand Annual is they go a mad gallop and stop usually, and Cur Sublime's a strong stay who'll get a patient ride, and I thought he was probably one of the better bets on the day.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. I actually quite like Buddy Rich in the Grand Annual as well. But I'm going to throw in here Comprond for the Philip Hobbs team in the Coral Cup. But those who've got nothing to do in their life, like myself, sit there at 11 o'clock at night going through weights and handicap measures. And he needs 19 to come out in order to get in. I think there's a chance he will just sneak in as long as the ground's not too soft. I think Comprond's got a massive chance. He's a previous course winner off a mark of 140, still unexposed, and I think he's ticking a lot of the right boxes as well. Many thanks for your input there, gentlemen. Some fascinating differences of opinions, what we like to hear. Stay tuned, because we'll be kicking off with the Thursday action very soon.